This is KTVO's Good Morning Heartland.
And welcome back. When the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute released new guidelines for heart disease prevention last week, it doubled the number of Americans eligible to take statins, a category of drug that lowers cholesterol and reduces heart risk in patients. Today we have Dr. Justin Puckett from Complete Family Medicine here this morning to discuss what it means to people in the heartland. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So first off, tell us how these new guidelines are changing things.
Well, often doctors are getting together. We've got guidelines for treating COPD, and we've had guidelines for treating heart risk. And so this time they got together, crunched some of the new data in the studies to determine who we ought to be treating with statins. Actually, they were looking at general heart risk, and so statins got most of the press, but they really talked about other things too. But they essentially took the mark from those who have a 7.5% risk in the next 10 years. That's the old standard, and we had a calculator to do that. And now they've said if you have up to a 20%, I'm sorry, I got that backwards, 20% down to 7.5%. So it used to be that the 20% you got a statin, now it's 7.5%. So it's really lowered the bar for those people. Mm-hmm. So it's made about 30 million Americans by the new guidelines need to be on statins.
And so what are those other recommendations in that report?
Stuff we've talked about and stuff we ought to do all the time. Eating right, more fruits and vegetables, less carbohydrates, exercise at least 40 minutes every other day. Those sorts of just healthy, active, decreasing salt, all those things that we've talked about, that just kind of normal, healthy activity. Essentially, it's kind of a Mediterranean diet.
So if you can, we have a little graphic to put up if you want to talk about the new guidelines for taking statin.
Yeah, sure. So essentially there's about 15 questions that you answer on these new guidelines, and all men over the age of 62 and all women over the age of 70, even if you have no other health problems whatsoever, according to the new guidelines, warrants starting on a cholesterol pill, a statin. But then it certainly can be younger than that, depending upon your history. It asks things such as smoking status, other heart risk, family history, all those sorts of things calculate into this equation to tell you whether or not you exceed that 7.5 threshold and need to be treated with a statin.
Now let's focus on cholesterol a bit more. What is the goal for most Americans?
Well, we've used to say a total cholesterol over 200 was a problem, and any LDL over 100 needed to be treated, or even 70 for high risk. But now we've really lowered those down more to this calculation. So instead of looking at your base cholesterol numbers, those numbers get calculated into this equation to tell you what your risk is. The other thing that we really need to be doing that we're learning more about is what we call an MRI of your cholesterol. So we're essentially taking your blood, running it through an MRI machine, and telling us how many particles there are and how big they are and how troublesome they are. And so we call that an advanced lipid profile, something that's new, but should be available at your doctor in the heartland.
All right, so of course we've heard all the hype with statins and how it can help benefit you in the long run, but of course there's always some side effects. What are your thoughts about the side effects?
Well, side effects really are very, very few and far between. So they get a lot of press, and when they do happen, they can be troublesome, but most of them, the vast majority of any side effects will just be some muscle ache in the upper arms or in this front part of your legs. Mm-hmm. And usually if that'll either go away with a little bit of time, and if it doesn't, then you ought to talk to your healthcare provider about swapping one pill for another, or decreasing the dose, or making an adjustment. We have some new statins that have very, very low side effect profiles. And then, there is that very rare instance where, like with any medicine, a Tylenol for that matter, can cause other liver problems and things. So if you don't feel well after starting any new pill, not just a statin, you ought to follow up with your healthcare provider. Okay,
what we'll do is we'll post all of this on our website at heartlandconnection.com. We'll also link up Dr. Puckett's information with Complete Family Medicine if they have any questions or concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, you too.
And we'll be right back.